Hey everyone, Vanessa here. I am sober since October 8th, 2017, and today I want to talk to you about the story paradox. So this is not necessarily exactly sobriety related, but I have been internalizing a lot of what I'm learning from this book and kind of meshing it just with my own life experience and kind of what I'm seeing in the world today, and really understanding that I can personalize this and what I'm learning in this book. In this book, it's about how our love of storytelling builds societies and tears them down. And what do you think about when you think about a society? You think about people and maybe like groups of people, but those groups of people are inevitably just created out of a group of individuals, right? And if you look at groups of individuals, every individual in that group has a story that they're telling themselves. And in communities like Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, or other 12-step groups, the story that we're telling ourselves is that we are addicts and alcoholics, and that we have lost control over our ability to drink or use, and that we need a spiritual solution in order to help navigate the world and not just live this live our existing time on earth with the absence of something that we were addicted to, but with removing that thing and replacing it with something else, which is the will of our higher power, of God, of whatever you want to call it, and checking ourselves to make sure that we're in alignment with that power on a daily basis, right? That's our new addiction in some form. And we become, in doing this, more aligned with our purpose and better able to serve others. And we're able to better enjoy our lives because we're never, well, not we're never, we're no longer actively contributing to the deterioration of ourselves and of other people around us, right? And that is like one example of a story within a group that we tell ourselves. And that's one that's used to actually face what is tearing us down and build out of it. And so that's a very powerful story that we're telling ourselves in these rooms. And then there are other stories that you see being played out now in our country. And these are stories of othering, and there are a lot of immigration issues and deportations happening right now. And there is this sense of almost just like rounding up the cattle and like shipping them off. And there's arguments for safety and security and all this stuff. And it's just, if it was just that, there wouldn't be this underlying hatred and disdain for certain groups of people, right? Like it would be a different conversation. It truly was just about safety and security, but it is actually about the belittling and demeaning of people who people in power see as different than them, or an other type of person, or maybe not even human, right? And we can see that reflected in the way that people are being treated and dehumanized. And so that is another story that people with power are telling themselves about people who do not have power, right? And so that is a story that is being used to tear down communities, right? And I'm in Southern California, and there are a lot of people here who are not here with who have not completed the proper paperwork to be here as a documented person in this country. And there are entire communities that are being impacted by this. And so it's not just impacting people who did not come here with the correct paperwork. But that is a story. And so I was thinking about, on an individual basis, what is the story that I'm telling myself about my life right now? And is it building me or is it destroying me? And so that was something that I wanted to talk about on an individual basis, because we will never see the world around us change if we ourselves are not willing to change. And I think that addicts and alcoholics have a particularly special gift of contributing to this world, because we are what most people will not do, which is we will turn and face our darkest selves and turn that into something like unrecognizable, right? I was posting recently on my Instagram stories, which, by the way, if you don't follow me, go follow me. It's Vanessa on Earth on Instagram. And I was posting recently about how I was trying this stupid new heatless curl thing, and I woke up with my hair looking crazy. And I don't, the term crazy is used a lot towards women to dismiss whenever they're voicing concerns or something, but no, I looked crazy, okay? And I felt particularly qualified to say that I looked that way, like an escaped mental patient, because I've been in mental hospitals. And I love sharing that little tidbit every once in a while when I can, because people think I'm joking, and it's no, I've legitimately been hospitalized, and I wasn't even released for 10 days. They had me. Usually they'll do like a 72-hour hold if they think you're a danger to yourself or to other people, and I got put on a 10-day hold because I was really a harm to myself and other people. And oh my gosh, I can't even. I just want to hug that drunk me. It's just so sad. But anyway, I'm glad that I still went through all of that because hey, here I am. But I do think it's sometimes again, it's not I have this amazing I do have a great I love my life. I have an amazing life, but I know other people will still look at my life and be like, okay, that's actually just nothing, but it's everything to me from having come from, and it's not just like the outside stuff, but it's like the internal peace that I have and the joy even when stuff sucks, even when stuff is like really chaotic and just confusing and difficult to navigate, I'm just so filled with the joy and hope and peace that can come only from God because I'm not like this naturally. And the story that I tell myself about how I interact with this world. Oh, but I was going back to saying that is a story that I like to tell people. But the story that I told myself about being mentally hospitalized for, she's off and on for an entire year from 2008 to 2009, or maybe 2009. No, it's from 2009 to maybe 2010 is really when it was pretty bad. And I was hospitalized repeatedly and also had a lot of arrests and being sent to the drunk tank and then released. And the story that I kept telling myself about those incidences was that I was broken, I was unworthy, I was unlovable, I was damaged. And I lived within that bubble and kept repeating the patterns over and over again because I believed the story I was telling myself, right? And I didn't really have anything outside of me to prove me wrong either. People were also really mad at me all the time and really disappointed and really worried and really judgmental of me all the time, right? And so I was like just reinforcing this pattern over and over again. And as time went on in kind of the narrative of mental health and substance use abuse problems came about, the language softened around it, and I got more comfortable being able to identify as having mental health issues and addiction issues. And so I felt better able to accept help at that point, right? And so then eventually, almost 10 years later, after that, then that's when I was really able to get into the rooms and start doing a program and become free from those things that were keeping me sick. And for a long time, even though I got into the rooms in teen, it still took me until 2017 to find long-term sobriety. And the reason I believe that happened was because I was still telling myself the story that it was just alcohol that was a problem. It was just, and that was a story that was short-sighted. It was also a delusion because I knew that it wasn't the problem. I knew that I didn't drink just to drink. I knew that I drank to escape from something, right? And to numb myself from something. And that first couple times I tried getting sober, I wasn't willing to look at that. And if I wasn't willing to look at it, then I wasn't able to work at it and accept it. And I wasn't willing to do any of the work to be free of it. And when I finally became willing after I was like basically beat into submission by alcoholism. And I was just so sick and tired and afraid. Actually, I was really scared because I realized then that I couldn't stop on my own, that it was going to take a miracle to make me stop. When that happened, I really began to see that, hey, I'm in these rooms with these people who are saying they've experienced things similar to me, but they're all here sober and they're laughing and they have joy. So I will never forget this. One of my closest friends, Kenny, he stood at a podium after I had to introduce myself as a newcomer for the freaking 15th time that summer. And I was so upset and I was crying. It was like one of the worst me. I was just crying the entire meeting. And so my friend Kenny had gotten up and we weren't even that close yet, but he looked straight at me and was like, if you want what we have, you have to do what we did and you have to do what you've never done before. And it was like, fine, I'll do the damn step work. And I got into a workshop and I actually started doing the work. And when I talk about the work in the program, I'm talking about the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I began to do the work, and eventually it stuck because I was willing to do that. And the story that I told myself, though, and able to make that change, in order to make that change, was that like this is what everyone else who I'm looking at and I want their lives and I want their joy and I want their peace. This is what they did. And so if it worked for them, it has to work for me because I've heard their horror stories and here they are and they're fine. So then it could also work for me. And then having that mental shift and then being able to and keeping that in mind as I was going through it. And but the way that I did step work, it wasn't an easy task. I've talked about it in other videos, but I do the Big Book Awakening. And the Big Book Awakening is a way of going through the work where you sit with a sponsor every week, you read through the book, starting at the title page, you annotate or you transcribe the book as well. So you have notes on every single line, basically, for the first 164 pages that really breaks down the language, the context, the history, and the spiritual aspect, and then some more of the historical aspect of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because it did end up becoming very effective. It's really effective if you do the work. And people like to harp on success rates, but the success rates are not accurate. There is no way to accurately count this because we had court systems for years that were pumping people into AA meetings that were not actually alcoholics. They just got, caught drunk driving, and then they're sitting in rooms with people who are dying of alcoholism, and they're never going to do the steps, so they wouldn't be considered a successful 12-step person in an AA meeting, right? But for the people who really are afflicted with addiction issues and who are really dying to complete this work, or even those people who are even smart enough to want to get help before they get to that point, they are the people who do find this work effective. And I have said this before, and I will say it again, everybody can benefit from doing step work because all it is a spiritual way of living that has been proven amongst so many cultures for thousands of years to be an effective way to live a balanced life. But that's another tangent. And so essentially that when I changed that story, it became effective for me to be able to be willing to do the work, which eventually saved my life. Oh, so I was talking about the Big Book Awakening is that it's not an easy process. Sit with your sponsor an hour and a half every week. You transcribe, you're writing these cramped little notes. You're doing questions every week and you're writing about your worst experiences and what alcoholism did for you and did not do for you and did to you and what you did to others. And like the first step takes 6 weeks and it is brutal. Like I still am just like, oh, when I'm taking other women through the work, it's still a very brutal process because I'm still remembering all of that, but it's brutal in this way that is humbling and that brings me to gratitude. But it it is this returning to, oh, that is what I was. That is what I did. And how did I even get here from that? It is just such an experience to go through the step work. But anyway, I'm not trying to tell you on the step work. The point is that the story I had to tell myself in order for the step work to be successful for me is really the story that had to change, right? And so I have been journaling more every morning and kind of sitting with myself and asking, what is the current story that I'm telling myself about my life? And where is there still room for more freedom, for more growth? What else can I hand over to God? What else am I willing to surrender and let go of? And I want to challenge you also to think about this. And I'll have some questions. And these are for my mystical sobriety course. And I want to share them with you because I do think that they're helpful and anyone could benefit from asking themselves these questions. Let me see if I can open this in a way. Okay. Just thinking about, you can think about your whole life, but I think this is really effective if like you're having trouble if you're having trouble with understanding what your place is in the world, or you're having trouble forgiving somebody, or you're having trouble in relationships, or with money, or with food, or with friendships, or your job, or whatever. It's like really important to like sit and reflect and get really honest with yourself. And just remember, you don't have to share this with anybody. This is just for you and God if you want to share it with God. This is just for you to really sit down and just assess what you're working with here and write it down. Be like, what is the story that I'm telling myself about this thing? Is it like, if I don't try hard enough at work, I will get fired, end up broke, and end up living on the street. And nobody will ever be able to take care of me, and I will be ruined for the rest of my life. And so that's why you overwork and is that why? Or is it maybe trouble in relationships? I was in a relationship, I was really hurt. There must be something wrong with me. I can never trust or love anybody ever again. And everybody who I want to care about is just going to hurt me or something. And that's why I will avoid like intimacy or partnership or whatever. Or is it around food? Maybe having food's a little bit tricky, of course, because it's one of those things. We need all of these things to in effect, but the story that I'm telling myself is that that I overindulge, and that's why I'm overweight and I'm unattractive, I'm unlovable and unworthy. And so then I need more food to feel better, and because it's the only thing that's ever been there for me. Or it could be the other way. Like the more control I have over food and restricting, the more control I have over the way that people will treat me because they'll perceive me as more attractive, and like all these stories that we tell ourselves about things. And so think about something for you. What is the story that you're telling yourself that it's like, if only I really want to be in a happy, healthy relationship, but this is the story. I really want to go for that job promotion, but this is the story that I'm telling myself. I really want to have a healthy relationship with my body and with food, but this is the story that I'm telling myself. And so think about that. And I just want to ask some of these questions to you as well. So think about the first time you had this belief, or like what exactly created this belief in you. And think about that initial incident or that initial time where you're like, this is where I think I'm going to be able to manage this thing. Because a lot of these coping mechanisms or these stories that we tell ourselves are because this is our way of trying to control something that previously hurt us, right? And so we feel like if we can try to control the narrative around it, we can control our experience around it, and we control our actions and behaviors around it, then we're managing our fears because we have just this bubble of the story that we're using to carry and protect us as we're navigating these situations. But actually, all that it's really doing is just keeping us separate from others, because we're using these stories as a defense mechanism to not try getting that promotion or that relationship or that dessert or whatever. It's something like that. So has this story, this narrative that you've told yourself, and by the way, when I say story, I'm not saying that it's not true. These things, people do hurt us, people do judge us, people do all these things to us as a result of our action or inaction or just our circumstances. And so it's fair to say that this story is true, but it's also accurate to say that it was true at a time and that maybe that story no longer serves us now, right? And so it's think about that story and think about how you've internalized that story that you're telling yourself. What is it impacting you? What is it impacting in your life? And how is it impacting you? How does this story affect the way that you treat others even? Do you find yourself judging others when they order a dessert? Do you find yourself judging people who are in relationships, or judging people who are non-committal, or judging people who are over-ambitious at work, or maybe they're not ambitious at all? Do you find yourself judging all these people? And do you treat them differently, maybe even perhaps? Do you avoid certain situations because of the story that you've told yourself about this circumstance or this belief that you have? And then how does this story impact the way that you treat yourself? Do you restrict your calories, or do you over exercise, or do you not exercise as like some form of like rebellion against your body or because you don't want to move your body? Do you drink or use drugs to escape the story? Do you avoid intimate and close relationships with people because it feels dangerous? How has the way that you're internalized this impact you? Because now you've kept yourself from love, you've kept yourself from honesty, you've kept yourself from health, you've kept yourself from maybe even financial wealth, maybe even, right? And then how does the way that you've internalized this story, yeah, it impacts the way that you treat your family, or that you treat your closest friends, or that you treat partners, or that you treat coworkers, or that you treat strangers who you've never met, right? But they're just meeting and you're, boom, judging them just based off of your own fears. How have these events and this internalization impact your relationships? And so now you want to ask yourself also, sorry, my charger just fell. What do you think it feels like to be in your present? How are people experiencing you? And is this how you want to show up for other people? Another question is, do you feel being in your own present? How does it feel to be with yourself? Can you be with yourself? And is this who you want to be? Okay, and then the next question is, how do you think, what effects do you feel like you've had on the lives of others? And what this means is, how do you feel like you may have wounded other people because of the story that you've told yourself? And this being essentially the program that you're using to navigate your life, right? How do you feel this has impacted others? And how has this wounded others or and gifted others? Is there something about the way that you're perceiving your life which it may actually have a positive impact? Is there a gift that you have is because of the way that you're experiencing the world? And which brings us to this next question of, how does this impact how you see yourself in the world? Initially, we were just looking at your relationship with others, your relationship with strangers, your relationship with close family members, your relationship with yourself. But how do you see yourself in this world? Do you see yourself as a contributor of good things and love and joy and hope and faith? Or do you see yourself as somebody who is skeptical and narcissistic, or fear-mongering, or self-centered, or in fear all of the time? And all of that other stuff, the narcissism, the fear-mongering, like all of this comes from a place of selfishness, which is, again, without judgment, rooted in fear. I don't feel like people who are I don't feel people who are afraid are not bad people. What they do with their fear makes them bad people. No, I'm just kidding. So, a lot of those actions, they do come from a place of fear. And it's that fear that fear that is stemming from that story that we're telling ourselves, right? And how does that impact how you see yourself in the world? And then last, how do you think that God sees you? And if you don't have a connection with God, how do you feel like that which created everything good in this world, which also created you, how do you feel like that energy perceives you? And then lastly, how do you see God's presence in you? I have this sweatshirt and it says, "You are the image of God." And I love wearing that because out everywhere, anywhere. It's a good sweatshirt, by the way. I think it's called by the Happy Givers. If you ever follow them on Instagram, they have a lot of great stuff. And I believe that it goes to support their ministry. And I can't remember where they're at. Maybe like Puerto Rico or something. It's true. And everybody is a reflection of God. Everybody is made in the image of God. And I love that because I see people's face light up a little bit when they see it, or they're confused. But it's true and it's beautiful because that means every stranger I cross paths with, it's this recognition that there is God in every single one of them. And God looks so different and so beautiful. And it's just really nice to be reminded of that and see God reflected back to me in all these different people. But it also, in light of this question, then that means I have to also be willing to see God's presence in myself. And so how does that manifest for me in my relationships? What does that feel like for me when I'm by myself? Oh, I do feel like a good sense. I'm a pretty optimistic person. I do have hope. I am unrelenting in my hope. I am unrelenting in my pursuit of joy, in my pursuit of justice, in my pursuit of connection, in my pursuit of trying to just see the beauty in the world as much as I can. I really feel like these are connected to God. These are gifts from God that I feel present in myself, that even though that they are within me on my best days on my own self-will, I wouldn't be able to produce, quite honestly, because I would be too self-centered and too running on my ego and fear to even care about the joy out in the world or whatever. Yeah. So I hope that has been helpful. And again, this is just an invitation for you to think about your story and how you're telling yourself what your current operating system is for navigating this world and really checking through it. This is 2025. We really want to assess if the operating system that we're in, that we're running off of in 2025 is really updated. It's time to get it updated. What I found when I got sober is in 2017 is that I was running on an operating system from when I was a child. All those feelings of unworthiness, of fear, of being scared of people, of always having this fawn response or this people-pleasing response, all came from this fear that I wouldn't be taken care of or seen if I was inconvenient or if I was needy or if I just wouldn't be heard otherwise or seen, or I was essentially neglected in a lot of ways. And that came from that also instilled in me a fear that I wasn't worthy of being seen or of being cared for. And that was also reflected in some of my relationships later on, and also in some job situations later on. And when I got sober in 2017, I had to really take a look at that and reassess, like, oh, all these beliefs that I had about if I stand up for myself, or if I say what I want, or what I need, or how I want something to go, just being transparent in my communication with others, that it would be like an automatic rejection, like that is a belief that I had to get rid of. And I had to also step out in faith in that I could be okay either way, because it's scary to also step away from that old story. Like I could wear that story like a coat. It was comfortable to me. It was a form of like protection for me, because to do otherwise, to step out in faith and in this acknowledgement that I am created in God's image and that perhaps I am worthy of the things that I deserve or that I want or need, like that just sound, I mean, I still kind of still is just, oh, that feels a little, who does she think she is? And I don't know, maybe you have those same thoughts echoing in the back of your head. If I say what I want, then what are they going to think of me? How am I going to sound or whatever? And what if you actually started acting like you deserve some of the things that are good for you, or at least that you don't deserve the bad things that people do to you, right? I don't deserve disrespect. I don't deserve to be demeaned. I don't deserve to be disrespected or insulted or degraded. I know that I'm better than that. So at least I know that. So yeah, I just really want to invite you to sit with that. And the next time you feel like that anxiety within you, like rising because somebody is asking you for something, or you're afraid to ask for something, like ask yourself, what is this story that you're telling yourself about what you think is going to happen? And even if it does happen, even if you do get rejected, or even if you do get fired, or even if you do whatever, can you still be okay? And I can assure you, you can. You absolutely can. You can overcome anything if you are willing and wanting to, right? There are certain Yeah, I am of the belief that you can. And so, yeah, let me know what you think about this little exercise. And if you want to share the story that you're telling yourself, good or bad, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know. I was able to reply to everyone's comments earlier this week, and that was nice. I didn't realize I'd let those stack up for almost a month. Would love to hear some of your comments. Let me know how this sounds, and go give me a follow on Instagram if you want. I love you. Okay, bye.